Welcome to the Kate Molland channel. My podcast is now in progress. Let's tune in.
Being your authentic self, what do you think that means? Okay, wait a minute. Never mind. I'm jumping way ahead of myself. Let's talk about acting. Since that's one of your favorite activities that you seem to enjoy, tell me about some of the challenges of acting, like the auditions. Did you look forward to the audition process?
Oh goodness, no, I never looked forward to auditions. Auditions for me were stressful and nerve-wracking because you don't really get a lot of time with the people who are evaluating you in order to see if the way you're interpreting the character is a fit for what they're looking for. And I feel like I'm somebody that at times I need feedback or context. So for me, auditions were stressful and nerve-wracking, and the only time when I would feel good coming out of an audition is if the character needed to cry and I could cry on cue. So if I could accomplish that, I would feel okay about the audition, but I didn't like the process at all.
I see. Well, I think that was one of the advantages of doing things the way I set it up, because with me, there were no auditions required, as you knew. My objective was just to get you on the set, get a script in your hand, something that I thought you could handle. And you seem to do very well with the scripts that I gave you. I'm particularly fond of that scene you did with Dr. Yeager. Do you remember that scene where mother-daughter arguing about your future? She wanted you to get a college degree and you wanted to be a celebrity. Do you remember that scene?
Yes, we shot that in a park, didn't we?
Yes, we did, in your Belinda.
Oh goodness, that was such a great day. Yeah, that was a fun scene. That was really good content.
Yeah, I think that was a good scene for you. And there were quite a few others that we can probably show some of the viewers, in the future. I'll have to dig up some of that footage so they can get a look at some of the things that we're talking about. If the outcome would have been to your liking when you pursued acting in movies and films, meaning you made the money that you set out to make, you probably would be doing a lot of the DIY and baking as a side thing, because that's what a lot of actors do who are successful. They say, okay, now that I've made this money, let me go do now what I've always wanted to do aside from acting. Would that be true?
Oh, yeah.
Well, let me change the word acting to celebrity.
Oh, okay.
Yes, because obviously you can be an actor and still be a starving actor, and you still won't be able to do much. So we're talking about being a celebrity, where the money, you've created affluence for yourself and the money's coming in the way you want to. Then you could see yourself taking that money and doing these other things like DIY around the home, the Martha Stewart things, baking, etc.
Yes, that would be if I had the affluence to allow, I would be using that for the DIY and the baking and really exploring that and showcasing that.
Why do you think it's so difficult to break into the top 2% of actors that are making the big money? So let's just say that success in the acting profession involves making millions of dollars and you're now in the top 2%, not 10% of union card holders, but the top 2% where the real money is. Why do you think that's so difficult?
Well, to break into that top 2%, you have to be on the coattails of somebody else who's already there. They want to, and they being the power players in Hollywood who are making the deals and casting these films and all the above the lines people, they want to make sure that they are bankrolling something that has the best opportunity of being successful. So they go to old reliable. They go to the people that they know are already bankable. If you're not somebody on their radar as bankable, you have to be affiliated with somebody who's bankable and be negotiated into that package.
Or you could just take control of the studios the way Howard Hughes did when he acquired most of the shares of RKO Pictures when it was owned by the Atlas Corporation. Kate, do you have any idea how many people buy their way into this industry? By investing in intellectual properties and including themselves or their kids as part of the deal. There was this film years ago called The Marrying Man with Kim Basinger. It was actually one of the films that me and my publicity team promoted back in its day. Anyway, the film was called Marrying Man with Kim Basinger, where Kim Basinger played the wife of this rich guy who bought a movie studio just so he could produce movies featuring her, featuring his wife. I mean, how many men out there get into this game just to put their lady in the movies? Remember, John Derek did that. John Derek, the guy who played Joshua in the Ten Commandments. And maybe you heard of his wife, Bo Derek. That's right. He's the guy that backed her, got the money, and put her in that film called 10. And then you have Charles Bronson, who married Jill Ireland. I mean, he had it in the contract. Okay, you want me in this movie? I got clout. I got power. I want my lady in this movie also. I want to play opposite my wife, Jill Ireland. There was nothing they could do about it. That's how it's done. So my point is, anybody with money can bulldoze their way into the industry. I did that. I bought the equipment, studios, wrote the scripts, gathered my close friends, you included, and made TV specials. And how did I get those shows on TV? Kate, there are so many ways to get shows on television. It is unbelievable. Now, I never played the game Howard Hughes played. But once Howard had all the power, he did the same thing Elon Musk did. He fired employees by the truckloads, becoming the first owner of a major Hollywood studio since the silent film era. Now, I do know that a lot of guys get into this game because of the easy access to some of the most beautiful women in the world. Howard Hughes was no exception. Now, if I remember correctly, Howard Hughes was romantically linked to some of the most beautiful actresses in the world, like Eva Gardner, Ginger Rogers, and Olivia de Havilland. Now, Olivia de Havilland, she was the actress who played Lady Marian in The Adventures of Robin Hood. Now, I think that version of Adventures of Robin Hood with Olivia de Havilland, Errol Flynn, Basil Rathbone, I think that was the best Robin Hood ever made, especially when you compare that version to Kevin Costner's or Ridley Scott's rendition, which I think pales in comparison. So if anybody wants to see The Adventures of Robin Hood, check out that old version from the 30s with Errol Flynn and Olivia de Havilland. Now, a little plug for Robin Hood. Okay, back to Howard Hughes. Howard Hughes knew that this was show business first. And when it comes to business, if you didn't agree with Howard Hughes' politics, he'd pull the plug on your project. Now that's power. That's how you break into the top 2% and control it. You outright gain that control by buying up most of the shares and do what you want in the industry. Or you make them an offer that they can't refuse. So since the starving actor is starving and broke-assing their way to auditions, the question remains, how can a wannabe broke actor make an offer that the studios can't refuse? Outside of this thing we called luck.
That is a great question too. And I feel that it goes back to old reliable. There's so many people who want to do these things, but then again, there's people who already have relationships established. And if you're already established with a casting director or some producers and directors about being a reliable day player where you can come in and do, 5 lines or maybe have 3 scenes, they'll call you because you're a problem solver.
Okay, and I like your point about being bankable, meaning if somebody sees an advantage to moving you, well, first you got to meet somebody. And if you meet somebody that finds you an advantage or a solution to their problem, well, then the probability is very high that you will get those 3 lines or you will wind up in a good independent film where you could even be lead or star because, well, let me ask you this. Do you think talent is a prerequisite? Do you think that talent is really required to be in today's films? Do you think these actors are really great actors that you see today on the big screen?
Sadly, no. I feel like the ways of old Hollywood are gone, and no, I don't feel that talent is a prerequisite for success in Hollywood anymore.
I know there's a lot of actors that tell me, how did that actor get that role? I can act better than that person. And I think what we have here is what I believe acting really is. I don't believe that acting is a profession. I know people will debate with me on that, and it probably is. But to me, acting is more of an opinion. Meaning if someone is of the opinion that you belong in that film, you'll get the invite. If someone is of the opinion that you're bankable or potentially bankable, you're in.
I think that's a great way to look at it because you are relying on other people's opinions of you, of your performance, of your income potential for that film, of your name being tethered to that project as a draw. in order for their evaluation of your participation to take place.
To your point about being bankable or being on the coattails of someone in power or having the so-called nepotistic or social power context necessary, what I find interesting is this, and that is there are many people nowadays on social media who were at one time completely unknown until the rise of social media, and now they are invited to play in the big studio pictures. And those studio pictures want them because what happens when they segue over into the films, they bring their following with them. I think social media has caused a leveling of the playing field, meaning now, who cares if you have an agent? Who cares if you've got a manager? What matters is you've got the same people that the studios want to sit in those theaters. You've got the same people that Netflix wants who is subscribing to their streaming video. And what you got, they want. So in order to get that, they've got to go through you.
I think it's a great point that you bring up that social media, I think the opportunity to level the playing field is certainly there, because you do have some people, so these influencers that bring, hundreds of thousands of followers to their platform.
Some are as high as 40, 50 million. Can you imagine?
They create content that people follow, and why wouldn't they follow them to the movie theater? Why wouldn't they follow them to Netflix? It's a very valid point that you bring up, because I know who I follow. Like, I'm on Instagram and I see who I follow, and maybe they have 1 million followers.
Mm-hmm.
I know somebody like some of those folks that have their reality shows with their whole family. They have tens of millions of followers,
Mm-hmm.
and it could be across all platforms over 100 million followers if you want to tack everyone on the tote board.
Mm-hmm.
But I see what, people who I respect in music, I see how many followers they have, and they can call their own shots. If they want to segue into film or into TV, they already have. They can. The carpet is already out for them because they have a certain amount of following. So
what I find really intriguing in all of this is how years ago, when a person would go through the yellow pages and try to find themselves a talent agent, the talent agent would sit there and say to them, okay, tell me about your training. Let me see your photos. And if your photos aren't good, I got a guy who's going to take the photos for you. If your training isn't good, I got a school I'm going to recommend to you. And now they're not even asking for photos and training anymore. Now they're saying, how many followers do you have on social media?
I think that's great because, to eliminate a lot of the underhanded business dealings or people who are exploiting people who are, fresh off the train from Iowa, people got exploited in Hollywood, and they'll continue to be exploited until the end of time. But this way, it's a way for the average person to, provide content. And if people like that content and they follow that content.
What I like about it most of all is I do like your point about how it's not going to be that easy to take advantage of them because, first of all, they're not as desperate as somebody who is looking for a break. They've already made their break, and they're looking to negotiate with somebody. They've already made their break, so they're not in front of an agent begging for a break. Like, I've made my break. I've got my following. And so I'm here to negotiate the value that I can bring to a client that you have, and you can make some money. Can you see that? And if you can't see that, I'm gone. So I've got the power here. You don't. I make more money than you do. Agents don't make that much money. But a power player on social media can make millions of dollars a year, easily, even more money than celebrities who have Oscars. When you talk about, these people making $40, $50 million a year on YouTube, I mean, there aren't that many people making that kind of money in the acting community. What are they doing? What is Matt Damon making? I mean, Matt Damon is a great actor. You have YouTube kids making more money than Matt Damon.
Yeah, it's a crazy scenario when you look at it. And, would you have thought 10 years ago that this is where we would be, like as a society that subscribes to media and entertainment? But there are agents that specifically only deal in, YouTube talent, influencer talent. They're not representing TV actors, musicians, or movie actors. They're strictly sticking with YouTube talent and influencer talent.
They've adopted the mantra from Jerry Maguire. Show me the money. Show me the money.
I love you, Jerry. Show me the money.